Good evening, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to actually be invited to this workshop, and it's my first time to Delhi as well, so it's an excitement in all perspectives. I think I had the best dreamed of introduction to my talk that was possible, with Richard telling all these things I completely agree with. So I would like to take you in my presentation a step further to the things we are doing with linked data in our digital heritage network in the Netherlands. And I will show you what works and what doesn't work, and that we really need to work on the technology as well. Linked data isn't finished yet. We need to do more things. That's at least my opinion. Before I start with my presentation, I would like to tell a little bit about myself. And I did just a search on Google for this, and I selected a few images that came up. For one thing, I live in a country that is famous about its mills. It's windmills, and you will find another reference to it later on in my presentation. I work at the National Library in the Netherlands, and I work in the Information Policy Department. I'm an information manager. It is an IT function, but instead of technology, we really focus on functionality. That is our main focus, and we think that's very important because you want to keep the functionality stable and develop the functionality, and the technology changes all the time, so you really need to have separate views on that, and that's our way of working, at least. And my area is metadata and also linked data, and as you'll notice in my talk, the National Library is one of the libraries that is very involved in the cultural heritage domain as well, and that will be the topic of my talk. There are a few other pictures in there I briefly mentioned. One of them is DBpedia. I am a board member of the DBpedia Association, and also chairing the Dutch DBpedia chapter. It's a little bit of promotion. I have material with me. If you're interested, please come to me and I can tell you more. So that's the commercial part. There's also a picture of a beautiful 16th century painting, I think. And that's living actually on my laptop, and I found it through Europeana. So I think that's really a driver for me in order also to get the rich collections we have, the rich information to the people, and make sure that it's be found, and that is really what drives me. There's one last peculiar picture in there that is me playing a Jews harp, and I left it in the results because I'm also playing a mochang, which comes from Rajasthan. So I thought, well, I'll leave it there. Now back to the talk. I'll be first do a short introduction to our Dutch Digital Heritage Network. I'll explain a little bit more about what it is and what the goals are. And then I'll briefly look into the current state of aggregation technology, and I'll give my perspective on it, and that really drove us in order to find other solutions than just a regular OAI PMH aggregation approach. And I really, I'll explain more how we think with using linked data, how we can come up with a solution that is better, we think. That is, I'll look at it from a little bit of a theoretical perspective, and then I'll explain it what we're doing, we are planning to do in our digital network. First of all, our Dutch Digital Heritage Network. It consists of several or all the national organizations that are related to digital heritage information. It is the National Library where I work. It's also the National Archives is involved. We have our National Sound and Vision Institute, who is a partner in this network. And also our Cultural Heritage Agency. I looked up at some Europeana statistics on the state of the collections in Europe, actually, and you could say that about a quarter of the collections are digitized already. There's plans for still at least 50% additional digitization. People need to do it, and about a quarter of the collections just will never be digitized because they're not relevant or for reasons. So there is quite a large amount of digital heritage already available, but it's not very easy to find, and this topic has already been discussed earlier today as well. For the user, it's very difficult to know where the information lives, where you need to be when you really want to find things. And this is a slide of all different portals that are available for people in the Netherlands or in Europe. Europeana is also one of them. And sometimes it's been organized as a regional selection of information. Sometimes it's been organized as based on the type of materials in the collection. And they're all different views. And I think personally, the more the better, because I think every kind of user group you really want to give its own portal or its own service or its own website. But it's very important that you can easily go from one environment to another environment, that things are connected. And it's also about efficiency, because if you look at these portals, they're all built up on the same infrastructure, starting at the source of the data, which is a long way, and we really like to do things in a different way. But more important, we want to reach to the user, and we have these portals, but in the end, like Richard also said, the user isn't at your portal, but he's somewhere else, and you really want to connect to him. And we think that using linked data, using an open network of information is a very interesting or good way to make the connection. So what are the problems with the current infrastructure as we see them? For one thing, this is a typical way of portals being built. We connect to the data sources, we aggregate the data sources, and then we build the service on top of it. And that's just a regular approach. But at the moment, it's being done for every new portal that's being offered. If you look at it, there's really done a lot of wonderful work there, because the OAI PMH protocol is a very smart protocol, and starting to use this protocol has led to being implemented in collection management systems. So it's now almost default available. So it's really interesting, because it opened the collection management systems, and it was really a big step forward, I think. And another thing is that because of it opened it, people had to start to think, what does my information mean when somebody else comes and get it and wants to do something with it? And I think that's very it's very crucial that maintainers of the data start to think about the value without outside in their institution. But there are some problems with it, and I divided them in two categories, and I named it poor semantic alignment, and the other one is inefficient data integration. And both of them are the key parts in our strategy, which we chose in order to do things differently. Poor semantic alignment, well, I think that's been explained very well by Richard. You don't want strings on your data, you want URIs, you want sustainable identifiers, so you know exactly what the object is about. And Pavel said this morning as well, the quality of the data is problematic, and you really want to have the data being of good quality as soon as you aggregate it, as soon as you approach the system. Another thing is, and that is a very principal thing, I think. If you choose to use OAI PMH, you have to choose a model to represent your information. And I think that's the major, that's a very big difference with linked data. With linked data, it's very easy to maintain several models of your data, depending on which kind of user you're aiming at that moment. And there are also developments that actually want to support this on the HTTP level, so you can access a resource as a profile, and you can say, okay, I'm Google, I want to see schema.org, give me your schema.org profile, and I'm a library, I want to see your BibFrame profile, give me that BibFrame profile. And there is actually a W3C working group working on this to support this on the protocol level, and I think that's a really interesting development. Data integration, there's a lot of things to be said about the efficiency of it. I usually show this picture, and then it's for me it sums it up. This is an actual mapping of a configuration we have in our network, where we have several portals, and we followed a number of aggregation stages, different aggregators, just giving the data through to the next aggregator. Well, and I think in general, and that touched, I think, on the question of Jill earlier for the schema.org, in general, we kind of have a deep web problem. We have databases that are very hidden, and the relevance of the database is not really clear for Google finding it. And I think that's interesting because the deep web is not only digital heritage, but it's also in all different parts of data on the web, I think. So we have kind of touching a kind of a general problem. But I'll speed up a little, start about solutions. We think, for one thing, we don't want to have a silo-based service portal anymore. We really like to think in layers, and this is also a very basic part of our strategy. We say we should take care of the content and make sure that the content is being kept sustainable in a very professional way. And then the data becomes available, and it's very important that the data becomes available in a way that it's very usable in all different kind of ways. And then build on top of that, you build views on the data to support user services. That's basically the core of the strategy we have. And I'll be zooming in the middle layer. This is the area where I'm working on at the moment. And for us it's very important that that middle layer is as thin as possible, because everything you do between the maintaining of the data and using the data, everything that's in between there is a risk for sustainability. you see a lot of things being built and left. And that's even a problem with linked data. There are a lot of linked data sets lying around that's been generated once, and then nobody takes care of it. It's being published somewhere and nothing is happening anymore. So we think it should be as thin as possible, and that is also inspired by the idea that you really want to have data living in the web. Tim Berners-Lee called it on the web, but in the end it should be in the web. It should be integrated in the web, and that is the place you want to maintain it. And ideally you should be able to use it in a distributed way. So people should take care of the data and other parts should be able to use it. And in order to do that, you have to have a very basic approach, and you really have to think in a web-centric idea. So we set out to think about implementing the linked data principles in our digital heritage collections. And we said, okay, what is really about? Well, we need clear URIs, sustainable URIs. We need formal definitions for persons, places, concepts, event, things like that. And we want an easy way for people to make the connections to that definition. So we're also offering a service where you can search for a string and it gives you a URI back. So it's a SCOS API service. And I'm very curious because if I remember right, and it's also in Australia, one of the services, I think. So we want to have the right links in the data as early as possible, and then after that we want people to publish the data as linked data, which sounds very easy, but I'll come back to that. At the network level, we are providing services for the shared terminology, and we also have tools for alignment and linking. We already have them available. And we're really urging maintainers of reference sources, authority files, in order to publish their data as linked data in an open way. And like we had this morning discussion about metadata being licensed or not, I think being a public institution and having to with the money we get, we really should make it as broadly available as we can. And if you limit, if you put restrictions on using metadata, then you're already limiting things. And I think that should be a political thing, and that's even in our strategy plan that from our government that says it should be open. And that's a problem because my library is also using part of the data that isn't open, but it's very good to have it as a policy and try to strive for that. So we're building on previous work, and we're also very happy with the things that are going on, like the Getty Institute. They did a remarkable job of publishing the AAT and other thesauri, and we really point to them as an example for every organization in the Netherlands as well. But will our data be found if we do all these things? And it gets a little bit disappointing there, because we need to. This is the recent version of the Semantic Web, the linked open data cloud, which is too large to put in a slide these days. But if you really look at it, the way it's been made, it's the result of the data set that is being registered in datahub.io, which is a register for linked data sets. And it's kind of a funny idea that the Semantic Web is not there, but it's the result of data sets that are registered in a register. And it's even more scarier because the datahub.io doesn't exist anymore. It's now alt.datahub.io. and I wonder what is going on actually. But the thing that you need to register linked data in order to have it be found for others is something that is really a key thing in our strategy as well. So we are putting up a register in the Dutch heritage domain, and we asked all the institutions to register their data set. So we have a starting point to start to work with the linked data. And there's another problem. Here's the windmill. This is an example, like Richard showed as well. This is a painting, and it has a subject that points to the definition of a windmill. That's great, at least. It's not bad. But you really, for the user, you really would like to do it the other way around. The user wants to find objects about windmills. So if the user types in a windmill, then you probably need to translate it to the URI for the concept of windmill, but okay, that's doable. But then there's no way at the moment to easily find all the objects pointing to the windmill. And it's a very basic problem, and it's written in Tim Berners-Lee Design Issues, one of his pages. And he calls it browsable linked data. And if you really want to do it, then you have to add the backlink at the other side as well. But nobody's doing that because we're pointing out. That's kind of a strange thing happening there. And it's basically a thing that is about data integration. And data integration means that you take the linked data living in one place and the linked data living in another place, and you put it together, and then you can build services on that. And there are a number of approaches for linked data integration, and I'll quickly step through them. It's probably not the right time of day to discuss this in length. If you'd like to know more about it, please come to me. I think we discussed this earlier. This is the schema.org idea. So you translate your data to schema.org, and you have search engines finding all the data, and then integrate the data, and the integration is done in the search engine. And that is interesting, of course, and it's working, and users will find your data. But like publishing schema.org in the page, the only one who can query your data is still Google or another search engine, and not somebody else. And I think that's really the reason why you should do all things like Richard said, not only do it in schema.org. So what is the alternative? Well, this is the alternative. We have the linked data living. We have the linked data living in the collection management system, and we just copy it to a linked data database, a triple store. And then we start doing great things with it. But then we basically end up with the same thing we're doing with aggregators. We just copy the data and make a copy of the data, and then do all smart things somewhere else. And it's quite, for me, it's not a way where you can really, in a sustainable way, build on services, because you need bigger triple stores. You need to you think about synchronization. You need to solve a lot of problems, but it's all somewhere in the middle layer, and the middle layer becomes very big again. That's something we didn't want to. There are very tough things going on, actually. This is the Lot Laundromat, and they have already aggregated 30 billion triples. They actually, the latest development is that they have the complete linked open data cloud on a hard disk, and you can get it for 300 euros or something. So, but it's a strange model, because linked open data cloud should be interactive semantic web, living on the web and not living on your desktop. So you want to do federated querying, you want to leave the data where it is, and you want to have a smart way of querying the data. In order to do that, you really need everybody who's publishing linked data also have a triple store that can be queried, and that is a very hard thing to do, especially for small organizations. It's not realistic. So the last one we are really looking into is based on the ideas of linked data fragments. And linked data fragments is a technology that basically takes an RDF dump, a linked data dump file, and then it's kind of like a zip file, but it also has an index in it, and you can ask questions to the index file. And in that way, you can build actually a federated solution. And it's very new. It's only it's been developed, I think, a couple of years ago. But we are in contact with people who did it. It's from the University of Ghent. Ruben Verborg is called, one of the guys behind it. And we are really working with them together in order to show that this is a doable way. So, but even federation needs some direction. So you need to know which of the endpoints you need to query in order to have the best results. So there are you need to do something else as well. And those in that area, the backlinks are very important. Based on the backlinks, you know, okay, for this concept, I know that these and these objects are related. So we are also building a registry of backlinks based on the queryable data. That's basically the idea we have. So we've taken a number of steps in order to improve the semantic alignment, and we've taken a number of steps in order to improve the data integration. It is we published this on GitHub in June this year. It's a global functional design of the way we envision it. So please, if you're interested, have a look over there, and it's a very detailed description. And we're developing a roadmap that basically starts with the situation today. So we're not planning on building a new infrastructure. We want to work with the things that are in place right now, and we want to add services, we want to improve data, and then slowly go step for step onto the linked data approach. That's what we're doing. So thank you for the attention.
So at the end of the day, it's all about registry, yes or no? And you said that there was this registry, something.io, which got DataHub.io, and then you said it stopped to exist, and right ahead.
It's from the Open Knowledge Foundation, actually, and I'm really surprised that they're shifting. And
well, that's the thing, and then you went on and continued that now you are doing your own registry. So the question is, maybe the problem you're trying to solve is not technological at all, but organizational. And once you have a sustainable organization into which mission it's written to sustain these registries, then the problem will be solved.
Yeah, if you look closely to the slides I had about our policy, it's about organizing the network and the information, and that's my statement. But it's really about how are we going to cooperate. So the registry is a central cooperation tool within the Dutch Digital Heritage Network. And we say, okay, if you want to be part of our network, register your collection, register your institution, tell us what you have, and then we can build smart applications on that. That's the idea.
You talked about LDF, linked data fragment. So it's a publishing platform, or?
It's a publishing format, actually. So it's a translation of the linked data. So you have an RDF dump, a linked data file, and you can translate it in a format called HDT, and HDT is a queryable linked data file. And linked data fragments is actually an approach, a theory about how you want to approach, how you want to query data. And like Sparkle endpoint is you can ask anything through Sparkle. You can ask the most complex questions and you can most elaborate things, but it needs a very large server to do that. And linked data fragments is working on shifting this scale and say, okay, maybe we have a server that is not so intelligent, but we have a client that can process a lot more and doesn't need to have the exact answer, but can analyze the answer and draw the conclusions from the data it gets. And shifting that balance, that is the approach of linked data fragments. And there are all different possibilities of how, what kind of parts of the data you need in order to draw the right conclusions. And this very interesting theory going on there, actually. So there are pointers in my slides to the publications, and it's really interesting.
Hi, I'd like to hear your view or maybe your strategy on how to make the input of information and creation of new content not a hassle with all this, because I have to identify the entity I am entering and all the relations I have. So the authors, it's obviously people, but there might be some odd relations that could appear in unusual metadata, or in the middle of this description I could have many relations. So how can we make this feasible or to the user to input this data in an organized way?
Yeah, there are basically two parts of the problem. One part is how do we get with our legacy data into the linked data world. So and that needs to you have to do alignment, batches, and things like that. And the tools I showed are actually being developed in order to have intelligent algorithms that say, okay, this is probably this URI. That's one part. But the other part is that you want, with data creation, with new data, that things are done in the correct way. So we are providing tools for collection management people that are supported. So when they have they're typing a string, that they get suggestions about URIs, and it's very important that they get enough information to disambiguate, so that they know which the right URI is. But it's only, we plan to do that only in a SCOS layer, so it's a very thin service that only gives you you shout a string and you get the URI back. That's basically the idea. And the real definition of the URI is living in our knowledge graph, in our network. But yeah.
This would be a service provided
by our,
where you register the data set.
yeah, by our network. So we're not only registering the data sets, but we're also registering the terminology sources. And we say, okay, if you have a relevant terminology source, then register it. We load it up in the SCOS service. But we also are organizing the curation of the terminology source and the alignment between them and things like that. So, but that is very specific on the national level. We're forming a group of people that are knowledgeable enough in order to make the right alignments and enrichments of those terminology sources. But we basically want to profit as much as we can from Getty and all those kind of developments, and DBpedia, Wikidata, all those kind of things as well, of course. So, but that is our plan. Maybe someday I can talk about the result. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Enno Meijers. Now, for the photograph, you have to. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to thank Professor
I'd like
Prashad.
to,
Yeah,
a
sure.
little concluding. Okay. Yeah, I would like to thank the organizers for having me the opportunity to chair a session of just not the session of two wonderful speakers. Okay, though it is quite late in the afternoon. I wonder whether there would be dinner also followed by this, and after that one more session, or this is the last. Okay, yeah, yeah. In any case, I enjoyed both the lectures. Actually, we off late we are working on the data repository side also. There we would like to bring the linked open data uh, with a different perspective, whether we can aggregate the data sets of numerical data, for example, which are in tables. And we can have whether more granular approach to pull out the data in a cell and aggregate it. For example, if I have agricultural data of various countries, whether I can have, for example, what is the produce of wheat in so and so year across the Asian countries or something like that in that context. Anyhow, with that, I think, again, I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity.
So thank you, Professor Prashad. A small token of appreciation from the organizers. So with this, we conclude today's program, and tomorrow we are hoping to have another exciting day. And so one announcement regarding the speakers who are staying in Parkin Hotel. So there is a coach waiting outside to take you back to the hotel.